And we're all set.
Thank you, Dave. Good morning. This is a convening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. I'm Jordan Maynard. I'm serving as interim chair. We're hosting this meeting virtually, so I will do a roll call. Good morning, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning, I'm here.
And good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Morning.
It is August 15th. It's approximately 10:02 a.m. Since we're still in the call to order, I feel like it's the long goodbye, but we're going to say it again for Dave Souza. It's his last official meeting. He is getting ready to embark on a new chapter in life, and I just wanted to point out that he's been extremely helpful to the entire commission. Not only that, he is an extreme history nerd, so we often compare notes on anything from William McKinley to James Buchanan and everything else. So I will miss having that resource there to teach me stuff about presidential history. With that, commissioners, would anybody like to add anything or say goodbye to Dave?
Well, I'll say goodbye, Dave, and I wish you the very best in your future endeavors. You are going to be missed here, and yes, you've been a wealth of information for all of us, but more importantly, you've been a friend to all of us as well, and a big part of the Gaming Commission's family. So you will be missed, and we all wish you the very, very best.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Hill.
So same for me. I think one of my first interactions with you, you were trying to film something for the website, and I had the incredible settling chair. So having a squat to stay in the frame. So you handled me very well in that circumstance. You will be missed. Good luck and apologies in advance for what law school will do to you. But I'm sure you'll do great things with it. Enjoy, move into another part of the country. I hear it's beautiful, and keep in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much. I will.
Dave, likewise, I feel the same way as my fellow commissioners. Just want to say congratulations to you, all of the attorneys here at this agency. We will be thinking of you as you torture yourself. And congratulations and good luck.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Dave, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I haven't prepared anything, but I do just want to say, thank you for all the kind words in this meeting, and also all of the ones that have preceded it, and all the support that has, gone into this new chapter in my life. I wouldn't have been able to do it without the great people at the MGC, whether it's recommendations or just people to, bounce ideas off of during the application process. So thank you to everybody. It's been a real true pleasure working here, and I hope to keep in touch with you all.
Well, thank you, Dave, and good luck. If you need anything, let us know. As always, we are lucky here at the Gaming Commission to have A+ employees across the board, and you are definitely one of those. So with that said, Mills, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, commissioners, I think you all handled that, what I was going to say. So, thanks to Dave. Everybody sees everything that comes out of the comms division, but it's a small team. It's me and Dave. And he's been a huge help. When he asked me to write him a law school recommendation, my first thought was, oh no, we're going to lose Dave. And then my second thought was, that makes a lot of sense. So good luck, Dave. We're going to miss you.
Thanks very much, Tom. Well, we'll keep in touch, I imagine. And I appreciate all the help.
With that, thank you, Mills, and I agree with you on that sentiment. With that, we are going to go to Secretary Skinner. Next item on the agenda. Good morning, Secretary.
That's me. I'm still getting used to that. All right. We have two sets of minutes to vote on today, September 7th, 2023 and September 18th, 2023. Did everyone have a chance to review? And if so, any edits, changes? Okay. Mr. Chair, then I move that the commission approve the minutes from the September 7th and September 18th, 2023 meetings that are included in our packet, subject to any necessary corrections for typographical errors or other non-material matters.
Second.
All right, Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Secretary Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes. That's 4-0. So thank you for those. I know those are tough to get ready and tough to do, and We appreciate the legal team and you, Secretary Skinner. With that, we are going to turn it over to ED Serpa for a couple of updates. Good morning, ED Serpa. I apologize.
That's right. Good morning, Chair Maynard, and good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. The first item, as you know, last week we were unable to have our agenda setting meeting. And one of the items we had planned to cover in that meeting was a discussion on the date for the Commission's next discussion on the topic of wager limitation in the sports wagering space. So I wanted to cover that today. As a reminder, the Commission last spoke on this topic during the August 1st public meeting, and the consensus among the commissioners was that you did want to hold a second discussion on the topic and that you wanted it to be in the format of a public meeting. And also the thought was to have a split conversation with one half of the meeting devoted to operators providing their input and perspective, followed by a second half of the meeting, a conversation with individuals representing the better perspective, along with individuals representing the responsible gaming perspective. The discussion was that these would be two separate conversations as part of one meeting. I'm bringing it up today so that we can work to set a date. As you know, we could hold that conversation during a currently scheduled public meeting or select a different date for a standalone public meeting. If you'd like to choose one of our currently scheduled public meeting dates, I can have Grace remind us of those dates now. Or if you'd like to set a standalone meeting, we could discuss today perhaps a not later than date, and I can work with Grace and Trudy and the sports wagering team to find a time that works best. And just before we jump into that discussion, I would remind the group of a second item we should cover today as part of that, which is finalizing the format for the conversation. As you know, at the prior roundtable discussion, staff provided participants with a few starter questions with the caveat that any commissioner could ask any question at any time. During the most recent August 1st meeting, when contemplating the next discussion, we considered the option of either A, leaving all questioning open-ended, or B, having staff again prepare a set of preliminary questions. So those are the two questions for right now. I'll leave it to you to discuss your preferences on these topics, and then we'll move forward based on your instructions.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Hill.
if I may share with you my preference, I would like to do this as a standalone meeting. And I would ask that we do it no later than the first week of October. I think that gives us a month and a half to be able to find dates that are okay with all of us. But I think it should be a standalone because I think it could go on for quite some time. And I think if we put it in with a regular meeting, that that would be not so good to do. That would be my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien.
I agree. The timeline and the standalone, I would feel the same way in terms of written questions. I want to go back again and look at the list. I don't know that they need to be tweaked, other than I think Commissioner Skinner brought up an interest in hearing some stats, which maybe we can between now and right before then figure out if there's particular stats we want them to be prepared to address when they come before us.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner Skinner.
Yeah, I'm in full support of what Commissioner Hill is proposing relative to the timing and the standalone nature of this meeting. Because it is a public meeting, I don't know that we need to have prescribed questions in advance, although I do think it is reasonable to give the operators somewhat of a heads up as to what kinds of things we'd be expecting them to respond to. Again, as Commissioner O'Brien said, the statistics that were discussed weeks ago. I think that the questions that we provided in response to the roundtable that never happened is a good place to start. Again, with the caveat that commissioners can add to those questions real time.
So I agree. My memory of the last time we talked about the questions was it's a good starting point, but we reserve the right to ask any question at any time. So I would keep that notion. I also remember us talking about making sure that the format is such that it's respectful to all participants, which we will ensure it is. Whether that's ensuring that one group goes first and then mics are muted and then the other group goes second. We'll make sure that we get that done properly would be my preference. And with that, I have, nothing to add except to say that we appreciate who did engage in the first conversation and look forward to learning more as we engage in this conversation with the operators. And again, to reiterate, I hope that I expect every operator will engage in this conversation with us. Not hope, expect. Anything else, commissioners? I think you've got your marching orders, ED Serpa.
Absolutely. Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll move forward with those instructions. Okay, with that done, I do have one final item for the executive update today. I'm actually going to turn things over for a discussion from Burke Kane, our chief of the gaming agents division, for a brief casino update. So Burke, if you're right there and ready, please go ahead.
All right, thank you, Dean. Good morning, Chairman Maynard, Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Skinner, and Commissioner Hill. Hope you're all doing well. Today, I'm going to give you a brief casino update, understanding that our licensees are also giving their quarterly report. Secondly, we will go over the FY24 Department of Revenue intercept numbers and any other expired financial gaming obligations from the 3 casinos. So let's start with MGM. MGM currently is hosting a summer concert series called Free Music Fridays, and the 24 season has been the most successful yet. Attendance numbers have continued to grow, and depending on logistics, weather, and timing, they've also been able to save a couple of concerts by taking them inside to the ballroom. Just this last weekend, they welcomed a sold-out event in the Aria Ballroom named Celebrating Meatloaf. The Meatloaf tribute band played to an enthusiastic crowd who danced and sang to the entire show. MGM recently hosted the Rivet Fashion Show as the kickoff event to Springfield's Fashion Week. MGM is also currently running a back-to-school donation drive for employees to donate new school supplies to the surrounding Springfield school districts. At Encore, on July 22nd, Encore had the grand opening of Giordino restaurant. The Giordino is a new dining spot that offers a variety of breakfast sandwiches, smoothies, desserts, and cocktails. It's open daily from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. And as we all may know, Encore celebrated in June their 5-year anniversary, and they had all kinds of special events and promotions for their guests. PPC, in late July, PPC had the Spirit of Massachusetts Race Day and a Country Music Fest patio party with live music. On June 24th, as we may know, about a month and a half ago, PPC celebrated their 9th opening, a grand opening date, and I remember that well. And as all the casinos have, there's always promotions going on for their casino guests. Any questions or comments on that, or we'll move on to the DOR numbers?
Any questions?
I was looking for Commissioner Hill. I mean, when you have a tribute band to somebody like Meatloaf, I was expecting some sort of response.
2 out of 3 ain't bad.
There it is.
Paradise by the back door.
With that, we can go to the PowerPoint. I think Grace is going to share that for us. It can also be found on page 24, 25 of the packet. All right. Okay, these are the financial obligations for FY 2024. So starting with DOR intercepts. The Department of Revenue, by statute, all casinos are required to check any jackpot winner over $1,200 or any table game progressive winner where there's a payout of more than 300 to 1. These winners will be run through the DOR system to check for any outstanding child support obligations or any past due Massachusetts tax liabilities. So going across the first line, you can see the 3 casinos. DOR intercepts at Encore, 2.3 million. MGM, 630,000. Plain Ridge Park, 868,000, for a grand total of $3.8 million intercepted. The next vehicles, these are expiring obligations. A slot voucher, which we also call a TITO, a ticket in, ticket out. After 365 days, those monies are turned over. If not redeemed at the casino, those monies are turned over to the Mass Gaming Fund. So you can see the expired vouchers at each of the casinos that total almost $1 million, 957,000. There's also expired, lost and found. Quite often, these are those small tickets that people may have for 8 cents, 17 cents, and they just don't make it way to the cage or to redeem them. At the end of 365 days, those 3 obligations have been turned over to Mass Gaming to the tune of 265,000. And if anyone wins a jackpot and they don't have proper identification, that jackpot is held for them for 365 days. If they do not return, that jackpot also is turned over to the Mass Gaming Fund. And you can see that that's almost up to $250,000, 241,000. The casinos also offer to the patrons, specifically those little Tito tickets of 17 cents, 57 cents, etc. If they don't want to redeem them at the kiosk machine, they can also donate them. So you see the totals going across there, almost $170,000. And of course, any underage found gaming in our establishments have to forfeit their winnings, and that's about $9,000. Slide number 2. This is going to be a year-over-year comparison. We have 23 and 24. You see the DOR intercepts were 3.7 million, went up to 3.8 million for a small increase of 125,000. And the other categories you are able to read, it looks like all of them went up just a little bit, roughly 1%. And with that, I think we can have any questions or comments with that.
Commissioners, I'll just start out by saying, Burke, this is a very important function that we provide the Commonwealth, and so we appreciate your attentiveness to this. Commissioners, any comments, questions?
No, thank you to Burke. And then also just wanted to flag, I mean, hats off to PPC for the 0 underage forfeited. I know they have an easier way of securing the borders, but it's not a huge number, which is good for the underage, but I did want to flag, I like the 0.00.
And thank you for the comment, Chairman Maynard. I also wanted to tip of the cap to our gaming agents who are on site 24/7. They're the ones who are watching for these situations and all the other regulations that we follow, and their presence is 24/7, 7 days a week. And I wanted to publicly thank them also for their hard work.
We do appreciate those gaming agents, so we appreciate it. Anything else? All right. With that, thank you, ED Serpa. Thank you, Bert. We will be moving on to, I believe, a legislative update from Commissioner Hill. Anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would add is the last time we had talked about the Veterans Bill, the HEROES Act. It was actually signed into law last Thursday, but I just wanted to let everybody know at the Mass Gaming Commission that the language that would have allowed slot machines into our veteran organization was not part of the conference committee, so it was not part of the final bill. So that is an issue that has been laid to the side for now. And that would be the only update I have for you today.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Hill. We appreciate that insight. We knew that you were on top of that, and I appreciated you educating me on the history of that too. So, Commissioners, anything to add or asked for Commissioner Hill before we move on to the next item? All right. With that, we are going to turn it over to Chief Delaney. We have some quarterly reports, and it looks like we are going to start with PPC.
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. We will be getting quarterly reports from all of our licensees today. And then we will, after we finish those, we will be going through our policy questions, Community Mitigation Fund policy questions for fiscal year 2026. But first, we'll be starting off with Plain Ridge Park Casino's quarterly report. We have North Groundsell with us. I think he may be flying solo today. So North, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Joe. Good morning, Chairman Maynard, and good morning, Commissioners. Plain Ridge Park is pleased to present our quarterly update for Q2 of 2024. As Chief Delaney mentioned, both Heidi Yates-Akbaba, our VP of Finance, and Kathy Lucas, our VP of HR, on some well-deserved vacation today. And as such, I will be presenting all portions of the presentation. With that, I'll jump right into the financials. Starting off with sports wagering, total sports wagering revenue for the quarter was $84,399, with about $40,000 paid in taxes to the Commonwealth. The second quarter was challenged by unfavorable hold in the quarter by NBA and NHL games. Moving on to the casino side of the business fared much better than prior year, with net slot revenues of little over $42 million and total taxes to the Commonwealth of $20,587,000. While looking at the lottery, while lottery sales were down for the quarter, the year-over-year sales for the year are up. Q2 sales were $628,352 compared to a prior year of $645,963. As we look at our qualified spend for Q2, 903,000, or about 67% of our qualified spend, went to businesses located within the Commonwealth. And of that 903,000, a little over 70,000, or 8%, went to businesses located within our surrounding communities. As we look at our vendor diversity in our qualified spend, 27% went to our diverse suppliers, which exceeded our targets in all categories and our overall goal of 21%. Compared to the prior quarter, total diverse spend was up 25.6%. You'll recall that we were slightly short of our goal for WBE in the prior 2 quarters, and with this spend, we're back on track to meet our target in this category for the calendar year. Looking on the compliance side, a total of 125 people were prevented from entering the gaming establishment in Q2. 18 of those were minors, 26 were underage, and 81 had expired, invalid, or no identification. There was 1 instance of a minor found on the gaming floor and 1 instance of a minor consuming alcohol. Moving to the employment slides. During Q2 2024, PPC employed 423 team members. This is slightly less than Q1's 438. We continue to exceed our diversity goal of 15% in Q2 2024, with 29% of our team members being diverse. We exceeded our veterans goal of 2% in Q2 2024, with 4% of our team members as veterans, which is slightly higher than last quarter. And in Q2, 46% of our team members were women, which is slightly under our goal of 50%. 33% of our team members were local, which is slightly under our goal of 35%. Of the 423 team members in Q2, 280 or 66% were full-time, and 143 or 34% were part-time. Looking at our sportsbook in Q2, there were 15 team members. Of those, 13% identify as diverse, none disclosed veteran status, 27% are women, 13% are local, and 60% of those are full-time. And as we look at our supervisor level and above, we had 79 leadership team members. Of those, 16% identify as diverse, 4% are veterans, and 32% are women. Moving over to the community and employee engagement side, on the next few slides, I'm going to share some of our initiatives and highlights for the quarter. In Q2, we continued to invest in creating outstanding leaders. We did that through development efforts in 2 Penn programs that develop internal talent. One is Penn Women, and the other one is the LEAP internship program, which provides stretch opportunities for our team members. We also partnered with Bristol Community College to provide English as a second language classes for our team members. Team members took all these classes on site and were paid for their time in class. And based on the success of this pilot program, we're expanding our offering to more team members and offering additional ESL training for the team members shown here. We acknowledged our Aces of Penn Q2 winners. These are our team members who exhibit the best of best behaviors. And our team members had the opportunity to show their leadership skills at events including Derby Day and the Dinner en Blanc Boston with Boston Bid. Looking at other engagement efforts for our team members, we had our Derby Day festivities. We had a great crowd on Derby Day. We had everyone engaged and involved. We raised funds for the American Cancer Society that day, and obviously Kathy's signature pink was clearly on display. Our team members celebrated Asian Pacific Heritage Month, and we partnered with the Plainville American Legion to plant flags on veteran grave sites for Memorial Day. Finally, Penn Women continued their momentum with a few unique events that were a great success and well received by our team. And wrapping up on the community side, we had a great quarter of engagement with the community. A few of the highlights include a visit from Bentley from the Mansfield Police Department on Derby Day, support for Franklin's Safe Coalition Gala, participation in Juneteenth celebrations, hosting of the Old Colony Habitat for Humanity Awards ceremony, the Attleboro Norton YMCA annual breakfast, and our 4th year partnering with Rolling Thunder for their Memorial Day ride. Over 300 riders departed from PPC and rode from PPC to the Veterans Memorial in Fall River. So that was a lot. That concludes our presentation, and I am available for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, North. Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Skinner?
Thank you, Chair. Hi, North. Good to see you.
Hello.
I bet I know where Kathy is. I'm jealous I'm not where she is now.
Okay.
I usually am, but this year just didn't happen.
Understood.
I hope she's having a fantastic time. I'm sure she is. What was PPC's role with DEB?
So Kathy is actually on the board, I believe, with that group. And so we were there in a supporting capacity, helping them for their event that they had in Boston this year.
Mm-hmm. I attended that event once, pre-COVID, magical event. So many beautiful people, all in white, diverse.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And so just have some personal experience with Dinner en Blanc.
Sure.
Nice work. So overall, good presentation. Thank you for coming before us today.
Welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Hill?
Hi, North. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mentioned the Spirit of Massachusetts. I attended that this year, and I think it was the biggest crowd that I've ever seen there. There was not a parking space to be had, and very family oriented, and the races were very close throughout the day, especially the 2 big ones. So a great day of enjoyment by so many people. Just wanted to let people know that, and for the future, it's a great take.
Oh, we appreciate seeing you there, and thank you for the kind words. It was a great day.
And to my fellow commissioners, I took another tour of the barn. Now that it's totally finished, we were there for construction, and boy, did they do a great job in rehabbing the stalls back and where the veterinarians work and all that good stuff. It went off without a hitch.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. I'll just point out that you always stick to your goals, and you usually hit those goals. And we've talked a lot about esoterically whether we can get to 0 on underage. I can tell you, getting to 1 is really impressive. So so we appreciate that. And I see Lisa on, who I always love to see when we have those quarterly meetings. So With that, if there's anything else, North, you have for us?
No, sir, not at this time.
Well, thank you so much, and we appreciate you being here today and all the great work that you do at PPC.
Thank you.
Joe, we'll kick it back to you.
Thank you. So next up, we have MGM with their, MGM Springfield with their quarterly report, and we've got Gus Kim and Daniel Miller here with us, among others. So I will turn it over to MGM for their report.
Hi, Joe. Thank you very much, Chair, Commissioners. As always, thank you for this opportunity to appear before you and present our quarterly results and share it with the public here. Commissioner Hill, just could not pass up touching on the comments that you made about Meatloaf. Unfortunately, I missed that concert because my son, who is still at school, had a chance to come home for a few days before having to return. So I was with him at home, and so I missed it. But I'm a huge Meatloaf fan. You and I are kindred spirits. We love that type of music. So I'm hopeful that we can have Meatloaf, the tribute band, come back next time when I can be around. And so as with me, as Joe had mentioned, is Dan, our Director of Compliance, and Arlen, our Vice President of Finance, and Beth Ward, our Director of Community Affairs. I call them, obviously my colleagues, but more importantly, they're dear friends of mine. And so I'm always pleased to be presenting this report with them. And so thank you again for the opportunity. And I turn it over to Dan to start the slide. And that's, where are we? And I'll turn over to Arlen to talk about our finances. Thank you, Arlen.
Thank you, Gus, and good morning, everybody. I will go ahead and get us started to talk about our second quarter performance. So in the second quarter, we generated $60 million in gaming revenues and $16.8 million in taxes. April was $22.8 million in revenue, and taxes were $5.7 million, followed by May at $22.4 million with taxes of $5.6. And then closing it up June, gaming revenues of 21.9 and taxes of 5.5 million. And in the next slide, we can see that our year-to-date gaming revenues are at 136 million and total of 34 million in taxes. If we look at our sportsbook taxable revenue, it was a loss of about 1.7 million in our sportsbook, and then BetMGM pulled through with taxable revenues of 7.8 million and total taxes of 1.6 million. In the next slide, our total lottery sales for the quarter were 347,000. It looks like a 12% decline year over year, but as you can see, it's just a shift in weeks. In the next slide, we can see that year to date, we are up 1% above prior year with a total lottery sales of 762,000. Moving forward, our total diversity spend was 1.3 million or 80% of our total biddable spend. Our minority vendor spend was 8% of total biddable or 536,000. Our veteran vendor spend was 219,000 or 3%. And our women-owned businesses, we spent about $500,000 or 7% of our total biddable spend. And in a few slides, I'll go through some of the procurement efforts of the quarter. Our total local spend was 3.2 million or total biddable spend or 47%. And our total spend within the state was 3.6 million or 53% of our total biddable spend. Some of the events the team attended and participated in April, we hosted the Western Mass Developers Council vendor matchmaking event here on property. In May, we also attended GNE MSDC, the annual award celebration, as well as their quarterly industry leaders roundtable in June. We also held a meeting for women-owned and minority vendors in June, as well as attended a supplier golf classic. And I think you can see the pictures. The team had a great time out there. A beautiful day for golf, I'm being told. As well as on the second quarter, we did have several meetings as we had some bid opportunities with vendors. So we had meetings throughout the quarter. And I think with that, I will pass it back to Dan.
Thank you, Arlen. Good morning, Commissioners, Chair Maynard. As always, a pleasure. So I'm happy clearly about the amount of green that there is on this screen today. We continue to reduce down the number of actual access by underage to the floor as well as number of gaming. I know there's the blip there around the world of alcohol consumption. One of those didn't make it onto the floor. There was actual service within our tap restaurant. And then if we take the other two and then the one from June, those were on the casino floor, and sadly two were able to game as well. What I can confirm is none of them were under the age of 18. They were all 19 and 20. And any of the employees involved in service did receive discipline based on our program so far. I know Commissioner O'Brien tends to ask about this. So the longest time there, the hour and 10 minutes, was one of those individuals. Was a young gentleman 1 week from his 21st birthday. So, we just hope he could have waited that extra week and it wouldn't have been an issue, obviously. But he gamed and received an alcoholic beverage. From the challenges to the wins, and obviously now I'm trying to make this a more common thing on a semi-annual basis. I am tracking all of our security officers who detect and remove underage from our gaming area. And for the first half of 2024, it was this Ali Siad. He did a fantastic job. He was about 4 or 5 additional people over any of his peers in security. And so we awarded him a star of the show, which is our monthly recognition program for employees. So with that, I believe I'll hand it back to Arlen for employment.
Thanks, Dan. Our total team member headcount for the second quarter was 1,541, an increase over the prior quarter. Our minority made up about 52% of our workforce, veterans made up 4%, and our women made up 41%. Some of our hiring efforts continue. Dan, if you can move to the next slide. We continue to host property tours and career presentations. Specifically, we had the Holyoke Community College, their culinary and hotel program. We attended multiple job fairs, including Tech Foundry, Wayfinders, Massar, Hampden County, and Westover Job Corps, as well as we continue to partner on workforce development opportunities, including Holyoke Community College, Hampden County Sheriff's Department, UMass Amherst, the Springfield Public Schools Adult Education, as well as the Putnam Bach Tech High School. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Great to see everyone this morning. I am taking over our community engagement as I usually do. I'm always happy to talk about this, one of my favorite subjects. I'll try to breeze right through. There's a lot to cover in Q2. Friends of the Homeless, we continue to volunteer several times a month, serving more than 1,800 meals in Q2. Link to Libraries, a longtime community partner. We are helping to supply and donate books to local children in need, which we have done for many years now. Now, on that theme, an internal book drive netted more than 500 books that were distributed to Springfield schools. Great effort from our team members on that one. Our adopted school this year, Kylie Academy, we had our own extreme makeover with a garden courtyard event that will now be used this school year as a learning tool. So very proud of that as well. We continue our relationship with Revitalize CDC, a neighborhood cleanup, longstanding partnership with that organization, a neighborhood cleanup efforts just blocks from MGM Springfield. Louis, the picture on the left there, showing off his painting skills. We've become pretty good at that, but this is something that our team really does enjoy. We also packed and donated lunches, hundreds of lunches for all of the volunteers who showed up for that. If we could go to the next slide. Talking about an initiative with GameSense. If we could go to the next slide. There. Oh, one back. All right, there we go. GameSense presentation. That top left slide shows an initiative with GameSense going out into the community to talk about responsible gaming, this time at the local Jewish Community Center, which was a great event, and we plan to continue that as well. In that middle one, you will see that we packed thousands of personal hygiene kits. That was a volunteer event that we did on property, that we also distributed to our partners at Friends of the Homeless. for those in need in the Springfield area. Teacher Appreciation Week, we went back to our adopted school in Springfield for a week-long celebration. So much fun for the teachers and staff there and our team as well. Loaves and Fishes volunteer event. We have a steady stream of volunteers who help there monthly, again, located just up the street from property. YMCA volunteer painting event. All right, this is something that we had a great time with, putting our painting skills to the test for their teen center there. And then we continue our relationship with the city of Springfield and their Veteran Services Department, making sure that that a local cemetery just again down the street from property was properly flagged ahead of Memorial Day. We could go to the next slide, which you got a glimpse of a moment ago. MGM Springfield was once again the lead sponsor for the Weekend Pride celebration in Springfield, hosting the second annual U-Ball Gala. And again, strong contingent from MGM Springfield and the whole team marching in the parade along with our friends from Game Sense. So that is always something that our team really looks forward to each year. In Q2, it was a hot one. We continued our partnership with the city of Springfield to supply water to city cooling centers, along with other community partners like the Boys and Girls Club. Having some fun events on property because, you know, we love our New England sports teams. We hosted a Celtics watch party during the playoffs. It was really well attended. That was out on our plaza. We've done that before for the Thunderbirds and for the Red Sox and the Patriots. So a great time for that. And we continue to support our partners like the Springfield Chamber by hosting events such as their large annual meeting, which we were happy to have here on property. If we could go to the next slide. A brief look at our community grant initiatives through the MGM Resorts Foundation in Q2. We were proud to support several local nonprofits with close to $50,000 in grants. So that continues. So these are some great organizations that we have had the pleasure of working with, and they all won some fabulous grants that will help them for some time to come. All right, let's move on to entertainment. We are incredibly proud, starting with the Mass Mutual Center, that the MMC ranked number 9 in Venue Now's top 10 stops worldwide. So great job to our MMC team. That is such a huge accomplishment in the world of venues, as I'm sure you know. So wanted to point that one out. That was accomplished by continuing to bring in world-class entertainment like Maroon 5. That was in July of Q2. The MMC also hosting the sold-out Women's Leadership Conference with Bay Path University, where we also hosted a mini job fair, which I alluded to last time we met. And the MMC continues to work with our community partners, hosting many college graduations, something that we do each year for the community. If we could go to the next slide. Have to give a shout out to what's ahead at the Mass Mutual Center. The Down and Dirty boxing event coming up in September will draw a huge crowd. We are really looking forward to that, all to support local youth boxing programs. The AEW later in September will make its live television debut at the MMC to be broadcast on the TNT network that features wrestling stars. I'm not a huge boxing and wrestling fan, but Chris Jericho and Jon Moxley, these are big names. So we're expecting a big crowd for that as well. The MMC is hosting the Basketball Hall of Fame Classic once again, such a big draw showcasing top collegiate athletes and basketball talent. The BRIC convention in Springfield is being postponed, but we look forward to getting that on the books. That always draws huge crowds. We could go to the next one. Entertainment at Symphony Hall. Teresa Caputo, she has been here before. She always sells out. She sold out as well for this past May. And then coming up, we have canceled podcast cross country event, 2 women who really pack them in. We're excited to have them. That's coming up in September. We could go to the next one. Entertainment continues on property with Roar Comedy Club. We continue to have every single weekend. The Armory is packed with national and local comedians. So we're just so thrilled that this continues to be such a popular draw to property. And as was alluded to in the beginning of this meeting, Free Music Fridays continue. Sometimes we have to bring them indoors, weather depending, but we're so happy we can do that because, I mean, really, as has been said before, this has been a banner year for people coming out and celebrating live local music. So we're happy to do that and continue that tradition. Upcoming entertainment at MGM Springfield, we have Killer Queen, another tribute band, but again, this is a huge favorite. We know this is going to sell out. We also have Ginger Billy's Backwood Comedy. That's coming up in October. Michael Carbonara, that is in November. And Free Music Fridays, we will bring them indoors as well. We're looking forward to that and continuing that tradition. So a lot happening on property when it comes to entertainment. And with that, that closes our presentation, and we all thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you.
Commissioners.
So
Go ahead, Gus.
I'm sorry. Thank you, Chair. I was going to say thank you, team, for the great presentation. And of course, we are available for any questions that the commissioners and Chair you may have.
Commissioners, I see Commissioner O'Brien's mic's off.
Sure. Yep. Thank you. I want to start off with saying thank you for breaking down the under 18 and then 18 to 20. That's a concern I've had. I appreciate that you guys are doing that, and that most of these are over the age of 18. But Daniel, I did have a question for you in terms of, are most of these coming on because of security failures on human error, or is this still, the going under the railings, through the gaps, that sort of thing? What's the biggest offender here?
Thank you, Commissioner. And forgive me for not turning my video back on. I've been having a couple of internet issues, and I was hoping this might save it, and I won't get cut off. Anyway, so in these cases, they are underage individuals going through unmanned locations. To be honest with you, we still don't see a lot of people going under or over the railing. It's those few small sections where we've allowed access for our bar staff and servers, and into GameSense. Those are the main areas that are allowing people in. I think there was only one instance of any of those in the 3 months that was through a manned location. There was a security officer that either didn't dip from memory an ID or did and still let them through. But otherwise, it's unmanned areas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you exploring options in terms of, closing that off with an ability to swipe or something to make it easier for service to get in and out, but still blocking those gaps?
We are, yes. In actual fact, more so the GameSense location even than the other two, because that tends to be the first one that people come to, since our main entrance is a valet entrance, and it's sort of, let's say 25 to 30 feet from there that people sort of access. That may be putting a swing gate on there, like we have areas for life safety. But this one obviously won't be locked, quote unquote, and then putting signage up inside the gaming area that would still encourage people and let them know, you can use this exit to go to GameSense, sort of thing. And just kind of going over what that signage looks like, both with Mark Vanderlinden and then Mass Council's new Chief Marketing Officer, Janine Ruggiero, just to make sure that we all agree on what the correct verbiage is, and making sure that people know that that's still an exit to that facility and that amenity. So.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien, for that question. I will take a second to appreciate Ali Syed and the work he does to try to make sure that the under 21 does not hit the floor.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioners, Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning, MGM team. A++ on the community engagement, the community outreach. You have a lot of necessary and impactful initiatives in your rotation. And so it's always good to see. Beth, those really are my favorite slides. And so like PPC, I'm really happy to see that you are taking your role in the community very seriously in that way. And so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner. We're very proud of that. So we appreciate that acknowledgement, and we have a great team that continues to turn out time after time and make these happen. So thank you. Appreciate that.
And I will take the liberty to say, when I was young and not just young at heart, 24 years ago, Beth, I got to see Chris Jericho in the Louisville Gardens. So I'm glad to see that he's still at it and still doing his thing, and he's going to be at MGM.
Well, we shall see. We'll see how they do. But there's a lot of buzz going on about that one, so it's going to be fun.
Oh, Beth,
Yeah.
you have no idea, Beth. Come to the garden when they're around town. You can't get in there. That's gonna be.
Well, we're hoping the same for here. So.
Oh, you will. You'll be shocked.
Yeah,
Yeah, along the same vein, Michael Carbonaro, I took my kids to see him here in Boston many years ago. And so it's surprising. It was a show that they used to watch all the time. We all used to watch it and had the opportunity to take them to see him live. And just a little bit nostalgic to see to see him pop up on the screen.
Yeah, in full disclosure, I've taken my kids as well. So I'm really looking forward to that one. It's going to be great.
Wait till you see the Queen tribute band. I saw them at Red Rocks at Colorado 2 years ago. Close your
They
eyes.
are unbelievable.
It's like
Yep.
listening to Queen itself. So great entertainment, boxing, wrestling, rock and roll.
Thanks, Commissioner. Appreciate that.
I think that's all we have. Gus.
Well, then, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners, again, for the opportunity to come before you. It's always a pleasure to give this presentation, and I do appreciate and acknowledge the recognition that you give the team here. The team does really work hard on these community events, social engagement. And so the fact that you recognize the effort that our team puts in is really heartwarming to me. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And we appreciate everything that's going on at MGM Springfield.
Thank you, Chair.
Joe, I bet EVH is up next because I saw Jackie Crumb's camera come on.
Yeah, so we have last up, we have on for Boston Harbor's quarterly report, and we have Jackie Crumb here with us along with Juliana Catanzariti and I believe Tom Coffey as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Jackie.
Thanks, Joe. Good morning, Chairman Maynard and Commissioners O'Brien, Skinner, and Hill. As Joe said, I'm joined by my colleague, Juliana, who's the Executive Director of Legal, Tom Coffey, who heads up our security team, and also Jennifer Roberts. She is the Vice President and General Counsel of WinBet. And so I'll turn it over to Juliana to get started. Thank you.
Sure, I'm just going to share my screen. Sorry. Okay, there we go. Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Thank you for the time this morning and the opportunity to present our second quarter results to you. So beginning with our gaming revenue, taxes, and lottery sales, our gross gaming revenue for table games was nearly $78 million. For slots, about $105 million, for a total gross gaming revenue of about $102 million. This resulted in about $46 million in state taxes collected. And here we have the year-over-year comparison and the to-date totals. For sports wagering, our total monthly win for Q2 was about $874,000, which resulted in $125,000 in state taxes collected. Here are our lottery sales for Q2, which you can see were nearly $1.5 million, I'm sorry, which was just a slight decrease from the same quarter of last year. And here we have the year-over-year lottery comparison and the to-date totals as well. Moving on to our workforce. For Q2, for those employees who specified, 73% were minorities, 2% veterans, and 45% women. There were 563 employees who did not report on their minority status. And here we have the breakdown for supervisory and above employees. You can see 2% veteran, 5% for managers and above were veterans, 3% were for supervisors and above, and then going back to minorities, 73% overall, 42% for managers and above, and 58% for supervisors and above. Moving on to our operating spend. During Q2, our total discretionary spend was about $24 million. Of that, 10% was with minority business enterprises and 10% with women business enterprises. Our veterans numbers were slightly down. That's due in large part to some very large purchases we made
that were not normal purchases over the last year or so with veterans organizations that were just not recurring, that didn't occur last quarter. And then here is our diversity spending numbers for our discretionary spend. Oh, sorry, that was a double slide. My apologies. Here's the local numbers. As you can see, we spent about $2.1 million in Everett, about $1 million in Somerville, for a total of almost $11 million locally. And moving on to compliance, Tom has joined us and he will go over these numbers.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to go over this report. So in Q2, we had 11 minors were intercepted on the gaming floor. Minors are underage. 4 of those were gaming, 3 on slots, 1 on table games. In June, 3 of those that made it onto the floor also consumed alcohol. There was some parental involvement in that, and we did take action against the parent. Number of IDs checked, and this is a key number that I look at. Minors are underage that made it on the gaming floor, 7. We're working on getting that number down again. Again, those are human errors, not processes or policies, in my opinion. 8 of those, 8 individuals made it on the floor with fake IDs. 8 of those people that made it on the floor are underage. But again, if you look at the 3 that were with the parent, and I believe there were 2 others that were basically walked on. One was carried as a baby, and we counted that, and a couple others. I don't think that number is as egregious quite as it looks, but certainly we want to get better on that. Longest time on the casino floor was 95 minutes. And again, that was the incident in June with the 3 individuals with the parent that were drinking and gaming. They had exited a restaurant onto the gaming floor. And we need to do a better job of keeping an eye on that. But again, I think in our particular case, the processes and the policies, the resources are there to prevent this. It's really just a matter of human error and remediating those issues.
Mr. Chair, can I jump in here with a question while we're on the slide?
Absolutely, Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning.
What action did Encore take against the parent involved with the minor and alcohol?
So in this particular case, and any other case where if we feel a parent facilitates the entrance onto the floor, they're trespassed along with the individual.
Along with the minor?
With the minor or underage, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick follow-up too. What were the ages of these 3?
They were 17.
Okay.
So Tom, this is Commissioner O'Brien. Just the at the end, you've got the 3 bullets at the bottom of the slide. And the middle one says longest length of time spent by minor 2 minutes. And then shortest length of time spent by minor 50 minutes.
No, the slide that I have, which is 95 minutes is the longest, and shortest was 2 minutes on the one that I have.
I'm sorry, that's my fault. I must have transposed them when I put them on the slide.
Oh, all right. Okay. So can you talk to me about the longest time period in terms of how they were?
Those were the 3 individuals with their parents. It was
with their parents.
The joint parents. Okay. It was a father.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Welcome. And that's what I have on that.
Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Thank you.
So during the second quarter, our employee engagement team continued our in the moment promotion, where managers recognize employees who are seen demonstrating our values. Each quarter we focus on a different value. And so during the second quarter, we focused on our value of excellence. In April, we partnered with One Digital to host personalized one-on-one meetings with expert financial advisors, and team members were able to get free advice on financial planning questions. As part of our ongoing leadership training program, in April, we offered training sessions on emotional intelligence to provide tools to leaders in relating, supporting, and collaborating with their peers and employees. Our ESOL program continues, and actually the graduation was held last Friday. I was on a plane flying back from Las Vegas. Actually, I was on the tarmac waiting for the plane to fly to back to Boston. And I received a text from our president, Jenny Holliday, telling me how moved she was about a PAD, that's a Public Areas Department employee, who spoke in English, telling the group that he has been in Boston since 2016, had not been able to communicate in English, and he's without his family who are still in Nepal. He FaceTimed his family during the graduation to show them his certificate and said that he was going to save the celebration until they could all be together to celebrate. Unfortunately for Jenny, she was the next person to speak, and it was apparently a very emotional speech. During the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month, we celebrated the remarkable achievements of Asian American and Pacific Islander icons. And during Allyship Awareness Month in May, we provided comprehensive learning resources to educate employees on the principles and practices of effective allyship. In June, during Pride Month, we celebrated with an inspiring exhibition of LGBTQ+ icons, a themed bake sale, rainbow cupcakes, the proceeds of which were donated to LGBTQ+ nonprofits. We also partnered with the Simmons Group to create a new diversity and inclusion training to assist our managers in developing a culture where every employee can feel seen, heard, and welcomed. And we launched our second annual employee engagement survey, the results of which we have just received and are currently working on action plans, and we will present in our third quarter presentation. And finally, we celebrated our 5th anniversary, as Burke mentioned. We are proud to have almost 1,400 day one team members, including 2 on this call. Well, I guess myself included, but Juliana and Tom are both day one team members. Okay, and before I start on promotions, marketing, special events, and volunteerism, I just wanted to let everyone know that right now we're hosting our Feed the Funnel event and are looking for volunteers to pack 1 million meals. Everyone's welcome, well, age 6 and up, and we have sessions this afternoon and 3 sessions tomorrow. So if anyone wants to join us, please do. Our community relations team remains hard at work, coordinating volunteer opportunities and collecting supplies for our nonprofits. These are just a few of the examples of what was done in the second quarter. And our TRU donations continue, with almost 36,000 donated to 4 nonprofits servicing the greater Boston area. The Animal Rescue League of Boston apparently remains the most popular again this quarter. And if there aren't any questions, I will turn it over to Jennifer for an update on WinBet.
Questions at this point, commissioners? I think we're good, Jackie.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the commission staff. It's nice to see you all. Just to give you an update on the WinBet cessation, we started the wind down process on February 12th when we stopped accepting wagers, deposits, and account creations. And during that time, we gave 30 days for patrons to withdraw funds from their accounts with frequent reminders, as well as notification to the public in the Boston Globe. And we also notified our vendors of our plans. We settled during that time all futures wagers, and those were resolved by the time we met with you around February 23rd, where we were deemed to satisfy all obligations and our license expired. On March 12th, the 30 days, we made accounts inaccessible, and we mailed checks for any unclaimed account balances. On June 13th, we decommissioned and removed our hardware, and we retained the data on file for legal and regulatory purposes. Ongoing is our due diligence notices to those required per unclaimed funds laws of various states. And we are working on reporting those unclaimed funds to the various states following the laws that are required for every state that where people resided. So that's the status of our cessation timeline in Massachusetts. I'm happy to answer any questions.
No questions from me, Jennifer. Just we appreciate you keeping us updated and abreast as the process moved forward. It was we got a lot of good information from you during that time, and we're able to make good decisions based on that. So we appreciate it.
Of course, thank you very much.
All right. Is that the end of the presentation?
That is, thank you.
All right. Well, with that, commissioners, any questions about the presentation overall or any comments? Commissioner Skinner.
Yes, good morning, Encore. Jennifer, thank you. It's nice to see that you are here to report on the wind down operations. I think this is your presence today, your presentation today is responsive to some questions that I had posed to Joe. And I had some very specific questions that of some items that I think were outstanding. I don't have them in front of me today. I jotted them down and I didn't come prepared to ask them. So I will be following up with those questions through Joe, if that's okay. I think it had to do, and I don't want to misspeak, but I think there was some questions outstanding about trading, staff, and just generally the name of the sports book. Those just kind of open items that I think should be, that I'd like to see tied up just with the responses. So I'll follow up with Joe, as I said. And then the other comment that I have, oh, sorry, Jackie, I saw you. Did you want to respond?
No, thank you.
Really, the other comment that I had is kudos to you on your DEI initiatives. I think it's really important, and I thank you for continuing to keep the commitments at the forefront of what you do in your operations.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Anything to add, commissioners? I will say to the team at EBH, I'm always heartened by the fact that the team over there represents the community, and you see it when you go over there, and it's very very apparent that you do try to hire from within and within the community there in which you serve. So it's appreciated. I notice it, and the story that you told was very touching to me too. So.
And happy 5th anniversary, belated 5th anniversary. And boy, that cake, my goodness.
Yes, it was a great day. We had celebrations in the employee dining room. It was a lot of fun. I think our team members, there's photos all back of house of both opening and the celebration. So it was a nice time to celebrate.
I preferred it when I was able to come as a patron 5 years ago, and now I can't do that, right, in this new job.
I have no comment on that.
All right. With that said, Joe.
All right. Well, thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. So the next item that we have up is a discussion of our 2026 Community Mitigation Fund policy questions. Just as you know,
Can I just ask for a quick break, since this is, I just need 5 minutes, commissioners, if that's okay?
Sure.
All right, so let's say 11:16 at this point, somewhere around there. Thank you.
Oh, Eileen, I was worried you were upside down for a second.
Like, she must be listening to some rock and roll because she's going up, down, and all around.
Now, did you see she was sideways just then?
Trying not to hit like 11% when we get toward the end of the meeting. And I'm in a different place. So it's like, I can't, my cord is not quite long enough. And so I was like, oh, I'll spin it. But my screen unlock rotate is not working for some reason. So I'm stuck.
I think we can take the screen down. Thank you for giving me those few minutes. We will reconvene. This is a reconvening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Since we are holding this virtually, we will do a roll call. Good morning still, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioner Hill.
Good morning.
And good morning, Commissioner Skinner.
Good morning.
Chief Delaney, we left off with you getting ready to have a conversation about community mitigation fund guidelines.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, before we do that, Jackie and her team are probably long gone by now. But I think it important that I make a clarification for the record and for my fellow commissioners. My questions directed at Jennifer were misdirected. They were with respect to the retail sports book. And so those questions should have been directed to Jackie. And so just to clarify, and sorry for any confusion, to you too, Joe, because we had talked about those questions previously. So just wanted to make that clarification for the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. I actually translated it in my head to talk about the retail, given that we had talked about what was the name of it. I remember the whole conversation. What was the name when it opened, then it changed, and then it, so, but I appreciate that, clarifying that for the record. Chief Delaney, with that.
Okay. So we are starting our FY 2026 Community Mitigation Fund process. And I thought I'd just give you a quick recap of what we will be doing over the next couple of months. So this is the first step in developing our guidelines for fiscal year 26. So we will go through policy questions. And these are questions that all arose during the course of the last year. Sometimes they were, regarding money and other things, but some questions that were brought up sometimes by our grantees and so on. So we will go through those. We don't ask for a vote on these questions. We just really try to get the sense of the commission on how they feel about that. We will put those then into draft guidelines, which will be reviewed by the commission in September. Then once those are approved at that level, again, we don't really ask for a vote, but we ask for them to go out for public comment. At that point, we go out for public comment, and we also take input from our LCMACs, and then issue final guidelines in early November, where the commission will then do a final vote on the guidelines. So that's what our process is. So last week, we met with our local community mitigation advisory committees on these same questions that you have in your packet. And just at a high level, the general opinion of the LCMACs, given the fact that we've been presented with some challenges with our budget over the next year, and the fact that we've had a lot of success in FY 2025 in putting money out on the street, that the LCMACs generally felt that there wasn't really much appetite to do any major changes to the program this year. It was more or less, we revamped this thing last year in a major way. And the thoughts were generally sort of a steady as she goes kind of approach. But I will talk about what some individual comments were with each one of these questions. So the first couple of questions really are around the monies that are available for the program and how much money we should be spending on that. So as of once the 2025 grants were awarded, there is still about $30 million in the Community Mitigation Fund account. So we presented you with a couple of options here. The first one being putting out essentially the same amount of money as last year. If you add up all of the money that was available, it was about $19.55 million. Our awards came in at about 18.3. So if we went out with that same amount of money and we awarded all of those funds, we'd still have about $10.5 million in that account, which we would be able to use if there were any waiver requests or anything of that nature. And then, of course, that would obviously be available for subsequent years if we did not use that. We also looked at a more conservative approach. The legislature did indicate that the cut to our program was for just 1 year, and that the expectation is that funds will start flowing back into that program in FY26. But this second approach was a little bit more conservative as kind of a hedge against the legislature not funding the CMF again in 2026. And this would be to put out a sort of a reduced amount of money to the communities for this year, and then have essentially the same amount of money available for the following year. In doing that, so when we approached the LCMACs about this, pretty much everybody was in favor of the first option of just putting out the same amount that we did this year. The fear was with the second option is that if we actually reduce the amount of money that we put out, it kind of sends the message to the legislature that we still have a lot of money left in the account, which would kind of defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do. So I think that's sort of where the LCMACs came down, and I think we came down on that as well, thinking that that's probably the better approach. So let me stop there and ask the commissioners what their thoughts are on what the amount of money that we think we should put out for next year.
So thank you, Joe. Commissioners, who feels passionate about answering this question for Joe? Commissioner Hill.
I believe that we should go status quo. We do what we've been doing. Put out as much money as we can to the communities that have put forth their applications. And I'm going to preface everything by saying I thought this year went wonderful. I thought the program ran as smooth as could be. The staff, Mary, Lily, and of course, Joe, and all the subcommittees that looked at these applications. I mean, it was great and easier, I thought, than it has been in the past. So in terms of funding, I'm always push the money out. Whatever we have, we have. And if the legislature goes and puts, some type of language in that upsets the apple cart, so be it. We'll deal with it at that time. But as we have put money aside for next year, through our budgeting of this year, I see no reason why we wouldn't continue doing what we're doing. Plain and simple. I thought it ran great, and I really don't see where we need to make any, if some, minor changes to the program as we saw this year. And great job to Mary, Lily, and Joe on this running of this first year of the block grants. It in my opinion, went very smoothly, and we got more communities money than we've ever had in the past.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien, I see.
Yeah, I agree with Commissioner Hill in terms of the representation right now was 1 year, and next year until we hear otherwise, I think we just march on like we have been.
Thank you. Commissioner Skinner.
I don't disagree with my fellow commissioners. I think one area where I'd like to see us kind of ramp up in communications is just really making sure that the communities understand that these funds are, one time for this program year, this grant year, and that they shouldn't rely on the funds. And I know we do communicate that, but I think we do need to make an extra special effort this cycle to ensure that they do understand that they may have to, like probably never before, seek alternative funds in order to get these projects off the ground or to keep them running.
So thank you, Commissioner Skinner and Commissioner O'Brien. I will say I agree with Commissioner Hill's premise. I would let the applications be the guide, right? If there's requests for money out there and we've got money sitting there, let's get the money out. That's my view on it. And Commissioner Skinner, I would say your observation's 100% correct. I would also say it's an opportunity for those who receive the funds to let the state as a whole know how important they are and how much they appreciate them. It's a good opportunity to remind them of that fact too. So Joe, do you have your answer on that, at least that question?
Yes, thank you. So moving on to the second question, this question is sort of a major policy change from what we've done in the past. And the question is, should funds be transferred from Region A to Region B? Throughout the history of this program, one of the policies that the commission has always had is that the money generated in Region A would stay in Region A, and the money generated in Region B would stay in Region B. Both of the LCMACs have always agreed with that assessment. But in doing the calculations for this year, as of right now, there's only about $1.5 million available towards Region B. So just using last year as an example, about 4.3 million went to Region B. So if we kept with this policy, it would be a serious cut to Region B. When we brought this to the LCMACs, of course, as you might imagine, Region B thought pretty favorably about doing this. And look, and it's with good reason as well. You know, this is due to no fault of their own. If the money was allowed to flow into the fund as it had been, there would be plenty of money for Region B. So it's nobody's fault that this is happening. It's just the situation that we've been sort of handed. So when we brought this up to the Region A LCMACs, they embraced it less wholeheartedly, but they did fully understand why we would want to do this, and I think they understood that, you know, more or less. I would say that the gist was, we get why you need to do this, and if we were in the same position, we would probably want you to do that for us as well. So again, they were a little bit more reluctant, but they all agreed that was probably the appropriate thing to do. So we are recommending to do that. Both LCMACs were pretty adamant about, they wanted this to be a one-year deal on this thing. I explained to them that, look, we bring this to the commission every year. We always ask the question to see if we want to make any change to this. And up to this point, we hadn't recommended making any change. But so I explained to them that we would obviously bring this back next year as a question, depending upon what the legislature does next year. So with that, I'd be happy to get any comments that you have on that.
Commissioner Skinner.
Yeah, Joe, here's a question that I'd like to get input from the operators in each of those regions on. It would seem to be a significant, I mean, it is a significant departure from past practice. And though I understand the rationale in making a different decision this year than we have in the past, and I might even support it, completely appreciate the LCMAC's input here, but I would be looking to understand you know, how the operators feel about such a proposed adjustment.
I mean, we could certainly ask them that, but I'm not sure that it's really relevant to the discussion. I mean, these are tax funds that come in that are distributed to the regions. I mean, I can certainly ask the question, but I'm not sure if it has really much relevance to how. I mean, this is up to the commission on how to distribute the funds. Completely
agree, and it's not lost on me. But in this instance, I find value in the licensees' input. We don't, you know, whether we accept it or not, right? Whether we accept the LCMAC's input or not, I think both have valuable perspectives here. And I personally would want to make a decision that is fully informed, not based on just one side of things.
So I'm gonna thank you, Commissioner Skinner, for that feedback. Commissioner O'Brien, I see your mic's off.
I think Commissioner Hill was off before me, so I'll let him go first.
No, go ahead.
Okay. To me, it makes sense to do this the same way that, look, we were told this is 1 year, so we're going to march on with the allocations next year as if this is 1 year. To me, it makes sense to do this to reflect what was an unforeseen circumstance in terms of the monies flowing into the account. A decision was made to try to keep them A and B a long time ago. I don't have a problem asking the operators, but to be honest, it's not relevant to my position on this. I feel like this puts the equity back in, and it really does actually further, while it's technically a departure in funding source, to me, it actually sticks true to the purpose of keeping them each, funded appropriately. And so I would agree with the team's recommendation.
Commissioner Hill?
Yeah, I would have said the same thing at this point. I know we did not make this problem. This was put on our plate. And with the conversations that we've had with our groups, everybody seems to be on board that we would move some funds over from Region A to Region B for this 1 year. I think that's appropriate to do. We're going to be coming back in a year and talking about this again, that, maybe change it all back if the legislature chooses to allow us to have the funds that we've had in the past. So I have no problem with the recommendation from staff as well. And even some of the folks that have received the funds, they have been optimistic about this proposal as well, which they have not been in the past. So hearing from them and the fact that they're willing to do this for a year, I would have no problem doing.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. My understanding of how this initially happened was Region B was really trying to protect Region B. And this is with conversations I've had with Joe for a long time. I'm from a rural area and was used to other parts of the state getting all the money and being very cognizant of that. So I understood the sentiment. I imagine, Commissioner Skinner, the question you pose, I can't see how the answer from the operator in that region can't be, well, I want my region to get the money, right? I think the question almost begs that answer, because to say otherwise would put them at odds with their own region, right? and the communities in their own region. So I'm not Nostradamus, but I guarantee the answer is probably going to be, well, if I had my ruthers, I would want it to stay in my region. That said, I understand you needing that question answered to make your decision and respect that. I don't like this. I don't like that we're in this position, but I think Commissioner O'Brien and Commissioner Hill are completely right that this is kind of the position we're in. I would say already that my mind is where Joe's is on next year. We've got to make sure if the funding's restored that we're not in this position. I would also say I would be open, I'm just going to signal this now, to looking at the formulas next year to maybe be a little kinder to Region A, seeing as they had to give up a little more this year. Again, that's something I'm open to having a conversation with, depending on what happens next year. But I would be willing to go ahead and act as if the split doesn't exist for this year.
Yeah, let me be clear if I could. I don't disagree with the recommendation. But however, we didn't create the issue in Region B that we're trying to respond to. And so I understand, I know that we have wide authority to sort of implement a fix, a short-term fix. We hope. But we are talking about significant policy questions. And I think in order to fully understand the impact of some of these decisions that we're making today, as a courtesy, at the very least, I'd want to hear from operators. It does make eminent sense to do what is being proposed. There's no doubt about it, because again, we are trying to respond to something that was given to us to respond to, right? Not explicitly, but it's an impact of some of the decisions that were made, not by commissioners. So really, that's my perspective. That's the angle I'm coming from is, we're soliciting feedback. And I think we need to solicit feedback from across the board on, again, these very impactful policy questions.
Sure, I can certainly do that. I will reach out to the licensees and ask for their opinions on this. Okay, so the next question that we had was, should the commission make any changes to grant eligibility? So last year when we established the block grant program, we formally stated in the guidelines which communities were eligible for funding, and that's based on our historic practice. We didn't propose any changes to eligibility last year. Some of the things that have been thought about or that have been mentioned is that some of the communities that are further afield from the casinos may not have as significant impacts as some of those communities that are closer in. And I think we had some of those discussions last year when we were coming up with the formula and so on. For instance, traffic impacts are certainly diminished with distance and so on. So initially we thought about saying, do we want to make some changes to grant eligibility? And in our LCMACs, we're saying at this point, let's not really try to do that this year. We've only been running this program as it stands for 1 year. Let's give it and it was very successful. Let's give it a sort of another go round on this. And then when we find out what happens with the budget next year, look, if all the money gets put back in, that's great. And we continue along and so on. If money doesn't get put back in, then of course, everything's on the table at that point, right? We would be facing major changes to this program. So that was the opinions of the LCMACs. And I think, one of the things that we could do is if we kept the eligibility the same this year, what we could do is over the next year, do a little bit of research into that to say, maybe the money that goes to the regional planning agencies, maybe they could do some more broader regional traffic studies to see if there's really any impacts left from traffic on some of these further out areas, things of that nature. So I guess really the recommendation here is from our LCMACs is really to just keep the status quo, at least for this year.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Hill.
I agree with everything Joe just said.
Commissioners?
Ditto.
I'm going to agree. It would be nice to give them something that's the same this year, right? So, Commissioner Skinner?
I'm with you all 100% as opposed to 95% on the prior question.
All right. All right, Joe.
Great. So the next one is, should the commission make any changes to the distribution formula? We did hear last year when we created the formula, there was some communities who thought maybe they should get a little bit more money and so on. And we didn't do that last year. But what we did have was the availability of waivers. So if a community felt they really needed or deserved more money, that was an option for them. And a couple of communities took us up on that and were able to get funds. The changing of the distribution formula is a fairly large undertaking, and I'm not suggesting that we shouldn't do it because it's a large undertaking. But again, I think the LCMACs were saying that, again, let's sort of keep this ship going as it's been going, and keep things the same. And one of our communities that was looking for more money was Springfield. And when we talked with them at the LCMAC meeting, they still indicated that they thought they should probably get some more money, but that that the waiver process did work for them and help them get to a project that they would not have otherwise been able to get to with their funding. So we had a pretty good consensus that that we really shouldn't make any changes to the distribution formula.
I have one question, Commissioner Hill. I see your mic's off. Wasn't there a community in Region A that was looking to be reclassified, and we had this whole conversation?
Yeah, that was Revere, because they are not designated as a surrounding community, so they didn't get that sort of piece of the equation that would have given them some additional funds for that.
Did we look into that?
I believe they would have to go back to the legislature because there was a time frame in which they would have had to have adopted. Am I right, Joe? And they didn't meet that time, so they would have to go back and get relief.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that we have is that they petitioned, they did not petition to be a surrounding community at the time when they needed to do that. And as such, the legal team here at the commission made some determinations with the Community Mitigation Fund, if you read the language of that it doesn't just limit it to designated surrounding communities. It is also available for communities when they talk about in the law surrounding communities for the purposes of Community Mitigation Fund, it doesn't mean just those that were designated, but those communities that are nearby. So that's how we got to the fact that Revere is eligible for the fund, but in our formula, we did have the communities that were designated host and surrounding communities did get a little extra bump.
So I remember Commissioner O'Brien and I were set at this really small table out in Springfield, while the rest of the commission was set on a larger table, and there was a dais in between. And this issue came up.
The children's table.
We were at the children's table, and this issue came up, and I remember we asked legal to look into it at the time. I'm going to give my position on this because we're in the situation we're in, and because Revere has asked for this to be looked at. I would like, and I think they asked for a waiver last year is how they did it. Like instead of asking to be reclassified, they asked for a waiver. I just would like some way for them to be able to I would like to know whether we can give them the money or not. It really is what I'm getting at, and do so in a way that legal thinks is legal. I just kind of want a final determination on it because, like I said, we've been talking about it now ever since I've been on the commission, and the answer has always been a little bit murky.
Yeah, I'll talk with Todd and Carrie and see if we can't take a little closer look at that between now and when we generate the guidelines. If we were to do that, of course, that would mean, we're not talking a ton of money. I don't have the formula right in front of me, but I think it's a couple $100,000, which means we would have to rejigger it a little bit for all of the communities in Region A if we did give them that, because that's sort of where it would come from.
Yeah, I just don't want to feel punitive over, to your point, I don't want to feel punitive. My understanding is their administration has changed multiple times since that decision was made a decade plus ago. And I don't want to be punitive to the community is all I'm thinking, especially like you said, for $100,000 or so. Anyways, that's what I'm thinking, commissioners. I'm open to being told I'm wrong on this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I could jump in, I would request that we have a separate discussion dedicated to that, as opposed to just rolling this into the guidelines for our review. I think that we do need to put some serious consideration to that and really understand what the background is before we give Joe the green light to incorporate this in guidelines, where I think we'd be kind of stuck, right? Because no one wants to have this presented and reject it outright, right? When there's something that's very detailed and outlined in the guidelines. It makes it harder for me to say no. Not that I'm leaning towards saying no, but I just don't want to be pinned in that way.
Sure. And I think the other thing that we can always do is we can just, in developing the guidelines, we can just keep going as we're going. And, and this can always be modified. I mean, the reality is let's say we say that we're putting out $11.5 million in Region A. We could make that 11.7 million. If it's a $200,000 difference, we could we could add that to their allotment at any point in time before their, their application is due to us. I mean, we could make that change sort of outside of this cycle, if you will. I mean, it would certainly need to be a separate discussion to do that.
Yeah, and Commissioner Skinner, I should probably be a little more clear with what I was thinking. What I was thinking was broadly agreeing to what Joe is saying here and the recommendation, but giving ourselves flexibility if legal comes back and says, we think there's a little wiggle room here, to allowing Revere to, again, they may not apply for anything. Let's remember that they may apply for $0, but in a situation where they've came multiple times and asked, I would like to at least get a final answer, because I've been sitting around thinking about it for a couple of years now myself, and this is kind of our opportunity to tackle
and
it.
the other thing that is a possibility here, and again, this would have to be put in front of legal. Revere is not a designated surrounding community. It is a community that directly abuts Everett. We could say that for the purposes of Community Mitigation Fund, a community that directly abuts a host community for the purposes of this is considered a surrounding community, just for a Community Mitigation Fund, and that would sort of give them that extra bonus, but they would not be designated as a surrounding community under the designation we did back in 2014 or 15 or whenever we did that. That was a one-time designation. There is no
but Joe, that's the
opportunity.
question. That was one of the questions that we had, right? Which is, it's on hold right now, but if EBH is in fact going to change substantially and go across the street, and they're going to have to renegotiate host community agreements, does that change Revere's ability to come in at that point and say, well, wait a minute. And that was one of the questions that I had for legal that is not directly bearing on the question you put in front of us today, but is part of the conversation. So Commissioner Skinner's point about let's mark this up for a deeper dive, that's the deeper dive part for me. That's not necessarily relevant to my answer on this for next year, but it is a deeper question.
Yeah, that is a question that I'm not even going to pretend I know the answer.
Right. No, that's the one we volleyed over to legal. So that's the one that we should queue up separately.
Okay. I think I have my marching orders on that. So then the next one is, should the commission change the length of the grant term or not allow extensions to current grants? Right now we do the contracts as a 4-year contract, which is kind of a long period of time. And we have actually even had some people go to 4 years and ask for extensions on those for various reasons, and some of which we've granted. The thought here was that, we really want to try to get this money out. And the thought was, maybe we should reduce the grant, the contract length to 2 years. And obviously someone can get an extension if they have a good reason for getting an extension, which would create perhaps a little bit more administrative work for us. But I think it gives us a little bit better control over the funding. And, if people are not moving on it, it gives us a little more impetus. If they have a 4-year contract, these people think they have a 4-year contract. If it's 2 years, it puts a little more impetus on them to get going, to get their projects underway, to get the money spent. A couple of our LCMAs, I think in Region B, they suggested maybe going to 3 years on it rather than 2, because sometimes these things do run into delays for various reasons, trying to put something out to bid or whatever it is, and it takes a bit longer than people expected. So I guess just thoughts on that. This isn't critical. We could leave it at 4 years. We could move it to 2 years. We could have it at 3 years. It's, it just gives us a little bit more flexibility, I think.
So Joe, I have a question. So once we have sort of encumbered these and awarded the grant, is that segregated out? So if the legislature came in during that 4-year period and said, we got to sweep the account, are these funds available to the municipality still?
Yeah, these once they're under contract, these are encumbered. So they don't show up on the spreadsheet of how much money is available.
Okay, so those are restricted funds, protected.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It might make sense to shorten it a little. I don't have a preference, 2 or 3. I could go either way, but 4 does seem a bit long to me. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien. Commissioner Skinner?
I don't feel strongly either way. I would take Joe and his team's recommendation here.
You took the words right out of my mouth, Commissioner Skinner.
Yeah, this isn't one of the real exciting questions.
Commissioner Hill?
I'm on board with the recommendation. As the great British band Status Quo, as far as I'm concerned, we just keep everything as is for this year, and then we can talk about most of this next year.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, because I don't know that I heard a recommendation from the team.
No, I mean, it's you know, I think we were looking at 2 years as being probably the right number.
Are we going to do
Was
a
that
bingo
your
card
recommendation?
for every time Commissioner Hill references a band?
I got 3 more coming. I got Casey and the Sunshine Band tonight, so I'm all excited. I hope I make it out alive.
We'll work on a bingo board for the packet.
It all started with the updates. I didn't start it.
My apologies. I think I kicked it off. I got you going.
No, I think, Joe, I think this is one that you didn't get us too passionate about.
Yeah,
So
I
our
mean,
passion is your passion on this one.
Okay. All right. So the next one, should the commission be more prescriptive on what backup documentation is required? You know, so last year we tried to make it easier for our applicants to come in. And I think maybe the pendulum swung a little bit too far in one direction. We had some folks who came in who really provided almost no backup documentation, and we had to go back to them and ask for a whole bunch of stuff. So we're recommending here, we do want to provide a little bit more guidance in our guidelines to saying, you know, these are the kinds of things we really need to see. You know, if you're going to do some kind of a study, it has to have a real scope of work attached to it. It can't be do a study, you know, and that literally is some of the things that we got last year. And that created a lot of back and forth, you know, that really, you know, it's a time sink when we have to do these back and forth and get people to give us more information and so on and so forth. So that is our recommendation on that.
I know that Commissioner O'Brien had to ask for additional information a couple times on a couple of things. Commissioner Skinner?
I'm a yes on this all the way. Joe knows that, you know, he heard me during the 2x2s and my surprise at some of the projects that were coming through without any real documentation that the team was recommending be granted, which we did with some conditions. And so I was happy about that. But I do think that we do need to be, we do need to hold the applicants to just a different standard when it comes to submitting supporting applications, supporting documentation, excuse me, with their application for funding.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with using the block grant term, you know, the community development block grant is kind of an entitlement program. And I think some of the communities maybe looked at this as being more like that, where we get the money and we just, you know, we just got to work out, you know, once we get scopes of work, we send them to you and that kind of thing. And that's really not the case with this. We're using the block grant approach to saying this is just as a formula on how much money we can get to your community. So I think we have to be more clear on that this is not just an entitlement program. This is, you know, you still have to make those connections. You still have to give us those scopes of work. It's you know, it still is some of those things that you need to do.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. I agree that we have to remind everyone that we have to protect the integrity of the program and tracing the dollars and the funds, which is very important to us at the Gaming Commission. So I would agree. Everyone in agreement with this one for Joe? Thumbs up, okay. Yes. All right, Joe.
Right, so the next one is, should we make any changes to the identified project impact? So if you recall last year, we did a whole bunch of research through our own researchers, plus we use an external consultant to look at impacts all over the country and the world from casinos. And so we came up with sort of each category had our list of identified impacts. So we haven't identified any new impacts to add to those, but I know there were certain times we were talking about, like, you know, are these things still really impacts from the casino? Sort of at what time, or when are these things actually, you know, fully mitigated? And I think, again, the LCMACs were saying, let's really not, you know, mess with this too much. Let's just go with the status quo. And I think that's probably appropriate. But I think one of the things that I do want to do is talk with our regional planning agencies. You know, we did an earmark essentially for them last year for the first time to do some studies. And I think maybe what we can do is ask them to do a look at some more regional kinds of studies, things like traffic and other things, to see if does it still make sense for us to be funding these things. But I wouldn't suggest doing it for this year. I mean, if they put in an application to do a project for next year, that would, you know, that would give us some more ammunition to look at some of these things in the future. But we're not really recommending any changes right now.
I'm good with that. Commissioners?
Okay, so the next one, the question 8, this is the question we've been asking for a number of years now. It's the Hamden Sheriff's Office, their lease assistants. We have funded them for 9 years. I think, you know, the reason I asked this question is I think we would like to give them some certainty on, you know, whether or not we would consider funding this for the next year. You know, next year would be the 10th year of the lease that they signed, if we were to consider that. I think what the question that we're asking here, though, is only with respect to the lease assistance. You know, if the sheriff's office on their you know, recovery center, if they are doing something with problem gambling or something of that nature, they would certainly be eligible to apply for funds under that category. This is only saying, you know, have we sort of done enough on the lease assistance at this point in time? You know, if the commission wants to consider for one more year, I think we should know that. If they want to end it now, we should know that, just so that we can give them some assurance or some, I mean, obviously we can't guarantee that they would get a grant if they were allowed to apply for it. But if we didn't want them to apply for a grant, I think it would be good for them to know now.
So Joe, I'm actually, if you don't mind, Commissioners, going to take a stab at this. I don't want to prejudge an application. And so what I'm sitting here thinking is I don't see any other prejudgments of applications in here. We did have all 4 of us had a great visit at that facility. We got to meet Norma Hairston, who was just fantastic. She was an amazing person. Sheriff Kochi did a great job taking us around. And so my response would be, and we did hear some impacts that we hadn't heard before, I think, on applications. I don't want to prejudge an application is where I am right now. And what I would say is if there's a need from the sheriff's office, you know, put in your application as normal and we will give it the best consideration we can. That's where I will start this conversation. Commissioner O'Brien?
Yeah, I had the same reaction to this, which was, you know, I don't think it's appropriate for us to be prejudging. I mean, that's one way of putting it, right? Or just sort of giving an early answer, sort of an early decision application, which we're just not set up for that. And I understand the conundrum that they're in, right? That they'd have to go ask and put their budget in, and that kind of the timing is a little bit off. But, you know, it's a phenomenal program, but I've voiced over the last number of years, right, the nexus question. So I don't want to say to somebody, I don't think in any circumstance, you're done, you can't come back, you know, unless it's something like you guys have gone through and said, this is not a nexus anymore, right? And you guys have drawn a bright line in the sand. I don't want to do that, but I can't say yay or nay to something. It's like asking to get early decision, and I just don't think we're set up for that.
Let's talk this through a little bit. I agree with what Chairman Maynard and Commissioner O'Brien have said, but at the same time, if I'm in their shoes, I have depended on these dollars now for the last 9 years. and I'm trying to put my budget together for the next year or two. Should I not have some inclination that I shouldn't depend on these funds? We don't know. Like it would be almost like we do these right around the fourth quarter usually of a fiscal year. You're putting together your budget around December, January. Now all of a sudden we come in potentially and we say, well, we're not going to fund this anymore. We don't think there's a nexus. Shouldn't we have a responsibility, because we have allowed this to happen for so long, to say something? And I don't know what that something is.
So Commissioner Hill, if I can, I mean, this has been coming up in the 6 years that I've been here, right? Is at what point, there was chatter in the beginning. Once you hit 5 years out, that was it. And there was a sort of loud message given to them at 5. We're now approaching 10. And again, phenomenal program. I'd love to see the money from the legislature and the general fund go into this program. I think each county should have access to it and bring it back even more robust than it is. But we've had issues of they put a budget in as if they're going to get this, saying, yep, we're getting lease assistance of this much money, and that's what's submitted. Like, it's not a great situation to be in. And this is not anything negative about the program at all. I think it's fabulous. We don't do this with anybody else, and they have been told for a number of years, there is a chance you will not get this. Some of it has to do with the number of applicants we get. We don't know. Nobody else puts in that category, region B, et cetera. We have a little more wiggle room, right, in terms of what we're going to award. And so I feel for them and the position that this potentially puts them in, but I'm not going to lay out and prejudge or say that I'm going one way or the other early.
No, and I'm with you on that. So let me ask Joe this question. Instead of it coming under a lease, I mean, these are programs that they're funding as well. So shouldn't it be coming in as a program request and not a lease request? Or is the money specifically going toward leasing? Let me be more clear about what they're asking.
The application has been for lease, but they're not foreclosed from putting in for application.
Right. Right. So that was more my question is, with the lease assistance, I mean, if they're doing something that's dealing with problem gambling and want to come in with the gaming harm reduction category, they can do that. Any agency that's, that's dealing with that could do that. So that was why I had sort of narrowed the question about just to the lease assistance, but that's what they've been applying for since the beginning.
I am with my fellow commissioners on the prejudging 100%. But there's just a piece of me who, when you're putting together budgets and things of that sort, you'd kind of like to know. But yes, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place here.
I've got, and I know we're going to turn to Commissioner Skinner. I've got one piece of information for them, to your point, Commissioner Hill, about, well, can they expect this forever? One piece of information is that the program was cut for this year. So that's one piece of information for everybody who's put in for every community mitigation grant, is that there's no guarantees, right? But that said, agree that I don't want to prejudge. Remind me, Joe, before I turn over Commissioner Skinner, was it something like $400,000 last year?
Yeah, it's been $400,000 a year pretty much every year. The very first year was prorated, so it was like $280,000, but since then it's been $400,000 every year.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Skinner?
Yeah, so a fine example of why 5 heads, or in this case 4, are better than 1. I hadn't even thought from Commissioners O'Brien and Maynard's perspective until you said what you said. But I also understand where Commissioner Hill is coming from. I totally agree that we should not be prejudging an application. And I didn't really, to be honest with you, look at it that way, but it does seem as though we would if we made a decision today to continue to fund. So no question about that. I'm on board with not doing that. At the same time, however, we have been presented with this grant application, for the past 2 years that I've been on this commission. And so it's a little hard not to think ahead in that way, because we are familiar with the project. We know what the funds are put toward. So it's hard not to be a little sympathetic to the need for funding. But I go back to my statements earlier, where I suggested we tighten up our communication to applicants that that these funds aren't guaranteed. And so we do need to make sure, as we have done in the past, that, to the point about these communities building these funds into their budget, that's at their own risk, right? And I think we just, as long as we make sure that they understand that, we are, we're covered here. So those are my thoughts. I think it's a good question, but I agree that we shouldn't be determining whether or not to fund their application, keep it steady and static at this point in time.
Commissioner Skinner, you did make me think though, and I can go backwards, even though I don't want to prejudge going forwards. I was happy to support it last year and the year before. So that I will say, and I did like what I saw when we did the tour.
And that's my struggle. I have no reason to believe that I won't like what I see in the, upcoming application should they decide to apply. And so that's what makes this a little bit difficult. But once again, I don't think we should be prejudging this application at this point.
Right, and I think one of the things is that we're not necessarily prejudging an application. This is a determination of eligibility. What we're saying is lease assistance eligible for community mitigation funds. That's really that's what the question is.
Well, to that, I would say
it's pretty specific.
Yeah, no,
this
I mean,
is pretty specific. Yeah.
As a matter of like our criterion, we've already said yes because we've done 9 years of it.
Yeah.
But in terms of very specific to these facts.
Yeah, if the packet said generally, how do we feel about lease assistance across the board? I would feel a little more like that.
Yeah.
But.
And then Joe, to the extent that you need an answer to that question, I think we've already answered it, right? Like, we're keeping the program status quo this year.
Yeah, and obviously, if the House does not put the money back into the program next year, everything is on the table.
Right.
Okay, so I think I have my marching orders there. And then, so the last question that we had is, should the commission establish a policy on the purchase of vehicles? We had, over the last few years, we've had many vehicle requests. Many of which we have not approved. I would say most of which we have not approved, because we couldn't really find much of a tie to the casino. I think the thought here was that if we had a policy, and we haven't really developed a policy yet, but if we had a policy that would give better guidance to the communities, that we wouldn't get so many, I'm not going to call them frivolous requests. These are legitimate requests of the communities. They need these vehicles, but they're trying to utilize a source of funds that might not be the right source of funds to use to purchase those. So, I think some of the things that we were thinking about is saying, last year we affirmatively stated in our guidelines that we wouldn't do vehicle replacements. If somebody came in and said, we want you to buy us a car so we can retire this other car, it's like, the answer is no. That's, we're not a vehicle replacement program. But I think what we probably need to do is saying that, they have to demonstrate how this vehicle is going to be used to address that specific impact, and show us that, really, I don't know if it's the majority of the use. I mean, look, nobody's going to use a vehicle 100% of the time for this thing. But, that they have to show us, what percentage of the time is going to be used on community mitigation. I mean, on casino impacts and things like that. Maybe we restrict them to, a community can't get more than one vehicle every few years from us or something like that. So I guess right now, I'd like to hear your thoughts on whether or not you think we should develop a policy on this. And I think while we're developing guidelines, we can sort of work on, if you do want us to do that, we can kind of work on that and then discuss that sort of as we go. Like I said, we don't really have we've thought about a few things, but we don't really have a policy in mind right at this point.
Commissioner O'Brien, as my fellow gearhead on the commission, how do you feel about the cars?
So I feel like we kind of have a policy, right? The broad, this is not to supplement your normal operational expenses that runs throughout, right? You've made clear we're not going to just replace vehicles that you have. There has to be a nexus. I can think of circumstances, right, where there might be a new ask for a car. You've got, human trafficking undercover operations connected to something, right? And you want a designated, UC vehicle. That's legit. I don't want to say you can't do that. So I wonder if do you need something in there that sort of compiles all the general things that reinforce we will not replace your fleet vehicles. But if you have a legitimate request with an excess, we'll hear you. I mean, that's where I'm coming from on it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of the things that, on some of the requests that we get, and these seem to be primarily from police departments. I think on a lot of other grants, like federal grants, sometimes a community will ask for a whole bunch of things and hope that they get some of the things that they ask for. And I think they're doing that a little bit with this program. And that's really what we don't want them to be doing.
Right.
We're saying that this is the amount of money we want to give you. Tell us the things that you need to address casino impacts and we'll buy them. But, this sort of, hey, let's try for I had a teacher of mine that said, aim for the moon and you'll hit the fence. There was
Mine said, may your reach always exceed your grasp.
Right.
That was the one I was always told.
So I guess that's where I think we want to at least give some more guidance. And I think just saying that, they really have to show this nexus to the casino. Like some of the things that we have bought are like, we bought a pickup truck to haul around traffic control equipment for the increased patrols and the increased
and the events at the casino. Yep.
There
I remember
seems
that
to
one.
be a connection there, but some of these where you're in a community that's like, say, not even the host community, and you're assisting that community, how much of the work is really being done on things that are associated with the casino, and the answer is maybe not that much. And those are the ones that we've denied.
Right.
But then we're in that situation now where we've said you get this amount of money. Now we've knocked out, $200,000 out of that. We really want to get the money out on the street. So
Yeah, so reinforcing that vehicles are frowned upon might be too strong of a word, but we're not supplementing your numbers. We're not replacing existing fleet vehicles. It has to be a nexus, sort of reinforcing. If your ask is 400 and half of that is, a pickup truck and something else, you might want to reconsider either the ask or what's backing up your ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with Commissioner O'Brien. I think that I wouldn't want to preclude a great idea, right, that we may not be thinking about, but at the same time, I understand it gets somewhat taxing to re-explain the rules. Commissioner Skinner and Commissioner Hill.
All right, so I think on that we will try to be a little bit more, provide a little bit more guidance in our guidelines and see where that takes us, and you guys can review that when we get the draft together and see what we think about that. Okay, well, that is it for the policy questions.
I have one thing, Joe. Can we open the floor just to make sure commissioners didn't have any further guidance or ideas? And there's a reason why I'm saying that. I don't know if Mills is on or not on, but Mills and I have talked about, and really this came to me because we just finished up that logo for the sports wagering to show that it's a licensed product through the Mass Gaming Commission. And we made a joke about it when we talked about the bikes out in Western Mass, but the more I think about it and think about wanting people to know the work, I would love to encourage those who receive grants to acknowledge that it's, you know, been granted by the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. And Mills has brought this up a few times in meetings, and I thought no better time to slide this in as a conversation starter as now. And I would just say I would support that, you know, that we do get credit for the grants that we're giving, and you're putting in a lot of work to do it. So, and just get it out there a little more. I think a lot of people don't know about these grants, and I think the more people that know about them, the more they'll see the great work the Commission's doing on this front. Commissioners, anything to add, or feel free to tell me I'm wrong about that too.
No, I think it's fine. It gets the word out where the money's coming from. I don't know if you're proposing that it be a condition of the grant. I mean, I guess that's the only thing
I think I would just put it out there somewhere in the application that, you know, we're happy to help. You know, if you're wanting to do some branding, we're happy. Our comms team's happy to do that. If you'd like to show off the program, we're happy to be there. I know we would do that. And
so like an FAQs part, sort of.
Yeah, and you know what? If you want to put MGC funded on your bike out in Springfield, we'll help you get that done. That's more of what I was thinking about, not a condition precedent or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, not like going back to the era when everybody had to put the logo up and funded by the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act all over the country.
Right. Yeah, no, I like it. I know Edie Serpa has also talked about that, right? Going out and, you know, we joked about the big check, right? Publishers Clearinghouse and that sort of thing, but getting the word out so that people do understand. You know, Commissioner Hill was part of that too, like explaining to the legislature, this is where the money goes, and this is its purpose, and this is where it's gone. It's not going to hurt.
Joe Delaney may be the next Ed McMahon. Who knows?
I don't think I have quite the boisterous laugh.
All right. Well, thank you for humoring me on that, Joe and Commission.
Okay, well, if that is it, then that's the end of our report for today. So our next steps will be to draft our guidelines, and you can look forward to those sometime probably in mid-September.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. With that said, Commissioners, are we good to go to the next topic? Do we need a break? All right. We're good to go to the next topic. We're going to go to the sports wagering division. And for that, I believe we're starting with Andrew. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. 2 items from our division today. First on the agenda, starting near the bottom of your packet on page 105, this is a slightly different topic. Normally, our division is petitioning to add a sport or league on behalf of one of our operators. Today's discussion centers around an investigation conducted by our division, and this is up for Commission consideration to remove a league from our event catalog. The league or governing body in question today is the International Boxing Association, or the IBA. Before diving into the details, we can start with the regulation language, which is towards the beginning of the provided memo on page 105. We've identified 5 lines from the regulation, specifically all pertaining to 205 CMR 247, which is titled Uniform Standards of Sports Wagering. Essentially, the items pulled here give the commissioners authority to restrict or revoke any approval for a sport, prohibit wagers that would be contrary to the interests of the Commonwealth, use information it considers appropriate to prohibit wagering on a particular event or category, or even exclude certain types, forms, or categories of sports wagering on its own initiative. So just a brief background on the IBA and why we brought this forward today. This investigation stems from some internal communications regarding Olympic boxing. After some further research, it was brought to our attention the details of the IBA. The initial event catalog, which was published near the launch of sports wagering last year in 2023, included several sports and sports governing bodies. I believe most, if not all, were submitted by our licensed operators, which helped shape the first catalog. Obviously, we've had a few added since then, but the IBA was included in the initial catalog as part of that approval last year. Also added to our event catalog during launch and outlined in section 11 of the guidelines tab is the exclusion or prohibition of wagers on any event or league overseen by a Russian or Belarusian governing body or body headquartered in Russia or Belarus. This prohibition was added due to the ongoing conflict in Europe and in Ukraine. And we've included a snapshot of that guideline in our memo today, and there's also a link to our whole event catalog as well. Now, the IBA is still technically headquartered in Lucerne, Switzerland. If you go to their website, they are a Swiss registered association. However, and this is what brings us here today, as many credible media outlets and news articles have pointed to the fact that current IBA president Umar Kremlev has moved
Andrew has frozen for me.
Me too.
Has since been reelected as of May 2022.
So
for an
Andrew,
additional.
you cut out just briefly, but the last I heard was credible news organization.
Yes. Yep. So there's credible news outlets or media articles that have pointed to the fact that current IBA president Umar Kremlev has moved most of their operations to Russia since being elected president in December of 2020. This movement by the IBA could be perceived as running and managing the organization from Russia. Kremlev has since been reelected as of May 2022 for an additional 4-year term, further cementing his position in the IBA. Additionally, per the source and research, the IBA is the last international sports body still overseen by a Russian citizen, and the only one which still allows Russian athletes to fight under their flag and play their national anthem. One last note here, and because we were looking into this as part of our Olympic research, since 1946, the IBA had governed all boxing matches for the Olympics. However, prior to the 2020 Tokyo Games, which I believe was actually in 2021 due to the pandemic, the IOC barred the IBA from overseeing Olympic boxing due to concerns over the IBA's governance and integrity. The IOC has since self-governed boxing now in the last 2 Summer Olympics. I've added a final snapshot of our current boxing offerings in the memo, essentially showing the number of other boxing governing bodies and leagues and what could still be offered for wagering as far as boxing, should the IBA be removed from our event catalog. With that, our sports wagering division does recommend the removal of the IBA from the event catalog due to the policy set forth on the Russian and Belarusian restrictions in section 11. And this is marked up for a vote. However, if you would like more information, we'd be happy to conduct some further research and come back at a later date if necessary. Other than that, that's all I have on this matter. Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. Commissioner Skinner, I see your mic off.
Yeah, and Andrew, thank you. Your memo is very thorough and quite easy to follow, and so I appreciate that. And I'm in support of the sports wagering division's recommendation. I do have a question though of legal. I don't know if someone is available. There's Carrie. Hi, Carrie. Thank you. So revocation of this approval, is it fully supported by our regulation here, or would we be making that determination based on the intent of the regulation, right? I'm just calling attention to the fact that the governing body isn't headquartered in Switzerland, just due to its physical location. I'm sorry, it isn't headquartered in Russia. The physical location of the headquarters, as reported by sports wagering, is in Switzerland. And so is that enough? I mean, but we understand that the operations are happening out of Russia. And so is that enough for a denial or a revocation of this approval? Or is it really just an argument that revocation fits within the spirit of the regulation?
Yeah, I think that, so good afternoon, everyone. I think that, it's two different things, right? It's the regulatory requirements related to what's in the catalog and then the catalog language itself. So the catalog language is what references this restriction. And then the regulation really gives the commission broad authority to determine what's in the catalog and what's not. So I think it's appropriate for you to draw the conclusion that what you intended to be excluded from the catalog includes this league.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. That was just the only question really that I had on this, is whether, it's supported, a determination by this commission to revoke is supported. And it sounds like it is, so thanks.
So I have one quick question. I'll turn to Commissioner O'Brien. Do we have, how are the wagers going to be settled that's already outstanding, if there are any, or are there any? That would be one of my major concerns here.
Yeah, I imagine we would go through an operator update or an operator cease and desist to stop offering wagers on all IBA events, and then cancel and refund any wagers, because this would be an excluded event, not an approved event. So they could go the route of 247.03 section 11, which allows them to cancel and refund on any event that is not approved for the event catalog.
And would the date be as of the date we take the vote?
I would imagine so. We could confer with legal down the road, but I would imagine it'd be today if we vote today.
All right, Commissioner O'Brien.
So also, Commissioner Skinner, this also addresses some of your concern, which is in addition to what we've talked about and what Andrew's pointed out in terms of the reality on the ground for this entity in this governing body, is I was actually very swayed also by the fact that the IOC had growing concerns over the governance, financial management, and integrity. So there are sort of two prongs to this for me. One of them is the regulation that we did on that. And then the other one is just a body that looks into this has already raised substantial questions and removed them. So I think for both of those reasons, I support the sports wagering department's recommendation on this.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just adding a comment, just want to express my appreciation for the Sports Wagering Division for flagging this for us and conducting that investigation.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien, Commissioner Skinner. Commissioner Hill, anything to add?
Nothing to add, but I would make a motion.
Are we ready for a motion, commissioners? I am.
Yep.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission revoke its prior approval of the International Boxing Association to be included in the official catalog of events and wagers in accordance with 205 CMR 247.038, as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today, and that the staff be authorized to remove the International Boxing Association from the official catalog of events and wagers posted on the commission's website.
Second.
All right, Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. Thank you again, Andrew. I echo all the words Commissioner Skinner had. And we are sticking with sports wagering for the next topic.
Yeah, next item up, beginning on page 108 of your packet, is a Fanatics House Rule Amendment. I feel like I froze again. If I freeze, just shout out again. 7 of their sports are up for revision today. And as I expected and predicted a couple weeks ago, we have some football markets rule revisions here before the beginning of the football season. With these changes, Fanatics would add 2 new markets in team rushing, passing, or receiving yards in a specified quarter or half. The other new market is a race to a specified point for the match, certain half or certain quarter. The first punt or field goal market has also been altered slightly, breaking out that tie option as a potential settlement. And then they've also added a dead heat settlement clarification in their general rules for any player involved in a stat market where there is a tie at the end of the regular season. Moving on to basketball, they've added settlement clarification for the ELAM ending. This is incorporated into a few of our approved basketball leagues, such as the TBT, which is the basketball tournament. It's also used for regular season G League games, which is a minor league of sorts for the NBA, and it has been used in previous NBA All-Star games. This isn't a new rule leagues have all adopted, but rather this is Fanatics adding that settlement clarification for their customers in these house rules. For baseball, a slight edit here. They've revised or reorganized rather their market for daily cross-match player props and team specials. Nothing substantive has changed here, but rather just rewritten for better reading and understanding. A few clarification changes for tennis, essentially breaking out under what circumstances they would void or not void a wager regarding changes to the specified match. For example, if a player is given a walkover or the match does not take place, wagers will be void. If there's a court change or court surface change, the wagers would stand. For golf, they've added a new market in top point score in team events. And you can see the additional rule language there as well. They've included the events for which this market would qualify, as well as the dead heat settlement rule. And last two changes here, a slight settlement clarification for soccer matches where the correct score and wagers will be inclusive of any injury or stoppage time played. And then for the MMA, they've added settlement that wagers will be void if a fighter or participant is substituted. And we are joined again by Fanatics Product Compliance Manager, David Truman, to help answer any additional questions you may have regarding these specific changes today. And with that, however, our division confirms that all requirements have been met pursuant to 205 CMR 24702, and we have no reservations in approving these house rule changes for Fanatics today. Sure.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Mr. Truman, for being here today. Commissioners, questions about these updates?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Truman, we're going to make it easy on you today, I think.
That's always good to hear. I appreciate that.
I have no questions either. Just to say I appreciate you, Andrew, and the work that went into the packet and explaining with the redlining and explaining what exists where and why you're supporting the changes. So we appreciate it.
All the team effort. Thank you.
If we're ready for a motion, I can move. I move that the commission approve the updates to Fanatics House rules as included in the commissioner's packet and discussed here today.
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes, 4-0. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Truman. Thank you, Andrew, for presenting those matters. Anything else before we move on?
That is it for sports wagering. Thanks, David.
All right, commissioners, we've got a couple of options here. We do have Director Vanderlinden is going to join us for the next matter, and then we will go into potentially a couple of executive sessions if we all agree to do so. Will we like a short break now and then perhaps go a longer break before the executive sessions if we call them, or what do we want to do? I need 5 minutes at least.
I was gonna say, you might want to drive the bus given what you're feeling, but I'm just gonna need a chunk of time for lunch. But other than that, I can do either way. I can power through, I can take a short break now, whatever anybody needs.
Do we want to just do a lunch right now? Would that work for everybody?
Before we answer that question, how long are we expecting the next item to take?
Mm-hmm.
That would
I would
dictate.
say that I never trust Director Vanderlinden's estimates before he answers.
What kind of greeting is that, Chairman Maynard?
It's a short memo, so does that mean anything?
It's as short as you want it to be. It all depends upon the discussion of the commission.
And that's what I meant, Director Vanderlinden.
So I'm okay with Commissioner Maynard, Chair Maynard, if you need a short break, I'm okay with the short break, 5 minutes or so, and then hearing from Mark, and then taking a longer lunch break before we go into executive session, should we vote to do that.
All right, if everyone's good with that, around 12:40, we'll hop back on. Okay, I think we can start to take down the screen. Give Commissioner Hill a second. This is a reconvening of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission. Since we are holding this meeting virtually, we will do a roll call. Good afternoon, Commissioner O'Brien.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Hill.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Skinner.
Good afternoon.
And before we took that short break, we were getting ready to turn to the Research and Responsible Gaming AI Working Group update. I did crack a joke, Director Van der Linden, and wanted to say that I want to be clear to you, your passion is what drives these robust conversations for RG, and that passion is seen all across the country at everything we do. But I still like to poke fun at you a little bit. So with that said, turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chairman Maynard. And good afternoon, Commissioners. It's good to see all of you today. So about a year ago, the Commission began expressing some interest in the utilization of AI technology specifically for responsible gaming purposes. And over the course of the past year, we've been gathering some information and trying to learn more, including an RFI that the Gaming Commission released last summer, and a response from a number of companies that have expertise in products within this space that would specifically work towards using AI technology to identify risky gambling behavior on sports wagering platforms and form of response based upon those levels of risk. And as a result, the Commission decided to form an AI working group in order to begin looking at this more comprehensively and across all of the divisions within the Gaming Commission. So that work group includes Chairman Jordan Maynard, Commissioner Eileen O'Brien, Executive Director Dean Serpa, General Counsel Todd Grossman, Chief Information Officer Katrina Jagrup Gomes, Sports Wagering Chief Bruce Band, and Chief Administrative Officer Grace Robinson. So we met in July, and there was to kind of kick this group off, and there was a number of things that were discussed, and I just wanted to kind of give you a brief update about what those were, and then what our next steps are moving forward. So first, in July, staff met with the New Jersey Division of Gaming Enforcement to learn about their efforts with sports wagering operators to identify potential problem gamblers in their phased intervention approach. Specifically, the New Jersey DGE developed a set of RG best practices that they've rolled out with all of their sports wagering operators. This includes a series of 10 different types of triggers, both account activity triggers as well as behavioral triggers. And based upon those triggers, there is a series or a phased approach that begins sort of very minor intervention all the way and increases based upon sort of what those triggers are and the length of time that those triggers have been present. So I think that it was a very interesting meeting. To my knowledge, New Jersey is the only state in the US that currently has something like this in place. I thought it was interesting information and certainly something for the Gaming Commission to consider. In addition to that, as part of the FY24 research agenda, last year, the MGC included a study on current and possible uses of AI in the gaming industry with a particular focus on marketing, player acquisition, and responsible gaming functionality in the Commonwealth. So that is actually kind of expanding the view of allowing us to take a look at how AI may be used in a broader context within the industry. So in June, we awarded a grant to the UNLV International Gaming Institute, specifically to principal investigator Khazra Garian. This is actually a three-part study. I won't go into great detail of it, but I am actually, to your point, Chairman Maynard, I'm actually really excited about what we can potentially learn from this. So there's three studies. The first is a qualitative study on the current and future uses of AI in the gaming industry. It includes focus groups with gaming industry AI experts, gaming industry domain experts, and just general experts in AI technology. The second study that I think will contribute not only to Massachusetts, but more broadly around the US is a systematic literature review. And Dr. Garian is proposing that we build what is called a Behavior Risk Indicator Database of Gambling Evidence, or BRIDGE, as he called it, which is sort of a living database of literature that can be sort of brought together and used not only by the Gaming Commission, but by other jurisdictions that may be interested in the use of AI technology, which, by the way, there are many. And as the Commission works in this space, we continue to be contacted by others who understand that there is a lot of potential in this. The final study is financial risk identification in the context of the gaming industry. And this is going to be sort of a qualitative one-on-one with experts in this specific space. There is going to be a specific look at what the UK Gambling Commission is doing in this place and their proposed financial risk checks. And while this is a little bit different, it's a very specific piece of how AI technology can be used. I think it's important for the Gaming Commission to take a close look at what the use of financial affordability or financial checks is. And then finally, we met with Mark Pace, who is the president of the International Gaming Standards Association, or IGSA. And the IGSA has developed a series of approved what are considered AI best practices. And I think that there was some interesting guidance from this group on considerations for regulators in general, not just even in the US, but in other jurisdictions outside of the US, on how regulators can monitor and regulate the use of AI technology. All of this has been very good stuff. When the AI work group met in July, we decided that it would be best probably to meet individually with our operators to have a better understanding of what their current use of AI technology is, to inform, also be sort of an input to inform where the Commission needs to stand on this. So those meetings are forthcoming. I'm working with Crystal and Andrew to arrange those meetings and make sure that we get the questions that we have out to them in advance. So that's an update for this working group. It's slow moving, but I think that it's important work, and there's a lot of considerations for us to do it right.
Thank you, Director Vanderlinden. Questions, Commissioner Skinner?
Thanks, Mark, for the information. It's almost too bad that those meetings with the operators are going to be conducted by the work group. That's something I'm definitely interested in, but I respect that there's a work group and trust that all of that information that will be reported back to the full Commission timely. So the best practices, the IGSA best practices, I tried to find those. Could you share those with commissioners?
I will do that.
You have
yes.
them? Thank you.
I do have them. And I'm sorry, Commissioner Skinner, you specifically referencing the
IGSA best practices. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Just say I appreciate it, Mark, and I've said at a few conferences this year, what we try to do here is not just be a thought leader, but build a better mousetrap. And we've seen, some stabs at building the mousetrap, and I think that we're going to build a really good one by the time we're finished with this process.
I hope so. There's a lot that's happening in this space, and a number of jurisdictions looking at it, as I mentioned, and specifically in the area of RG. I think that our collaboration with other jurisdictions, not just on this, but in a variety of other ways, is essential. So we're happy to work with New Jersey. We're happy to work with Ohio and other jurisdictions that are really putting themselves out there and trying to do this right.
And you literally hit the two jurisdictions I was thinking about. I started on a panel with them last month, and New Jersey is definitely, as they should be, very proud of their triggers that they have in place. So, all right. With that, commissioners, are we ready to move on down the agenda? Down the agenda.
Thank you. And I would like to note that was less than 10 minutes, Chair Maynard.
Well, I won't tie it to your passion then, because I know your passion was more than 10 minutes.
That's true.
All right. Well, thank you, Director Van der Linden.
Thank you.
So let's go ahead, looking at number 8 and 9, let's go ahead and turn to number 10 and 11, because I anticipate we probably won't return to public session. Do we have any commissioner updates? I'll give one at some point, not today on the Saratoga conference I just did, but I'm still getting my thoughts together. Any other business that we did not anticipate? All right. With that said, I'm going to turn to ED SERPA. We're going to have a potential conversation about the SEIU Local 888 agreement. ED SERPA.
That's right, Commissioner Maynard and commissioners. We've provided some information today for you to review as a follow-up to our last discussion in executive session for proposed language. And our recommendation at this point is that we would move into executive session to review the language proposed here and to have a full discussion of the information contained.
All right. So with that, commissioners, I'm going to go ahead and read some language into the record, and we can decide whether we want to enter in executive session for that purpose. The commission anticipates that it will meet in executive session in accordance with General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining of the SEIU Local 888 agreement, as discussion at an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the commission.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission enter into executive session for the reasons stated on the record by the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Skinner. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Brien.
Aye.
Commissioner Hill.
Aye.
Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes. Before we enter into that executive session, let us also consider Section 9, which is potentially going in to take care of some meeting minutes. If legal has nothing to add, I will go ahead and read this into the record.
No, that's great. Just
Thank you, Carrie.
thank you.
The commission anticipates that it will meet in executive session to review minutes from the previous executive sessions, as their discussion at an open meeting may frustrate the intended purpose for which the executive sessions were convened pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A4, Chapter 30A, Section 21A7, and General Law, Chapter 4, Section 7, 26F. And before we finish this, I want to make sure we get the date right. May 10th, 2023. All right. Do we have a motion to enter in for that reason?
I move that the commission go into executive session on the matter and for the reasons just stated by the chair.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Brien.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Hill. Commissioner O'Brien,
Aye.
Commissioner Hill,
Aye.
and Commissioner Skinner.
Aye.
And I vote yes. So I imagine we'll be moved into a virtual room. Grace is saying yes. All right.